Holy shit, Primal is really good. Funny story, I was gonna watch Primal in the first season when it came out in 2019, but I didn't for some reason. I don't know why. I just never remembered to watch it. I weirdly didn't see anybody talking about it, so it kind of just slipped my mind, I guess. But I finally watched it earlier this year, and it was really good. It has an amazing concept, great animation, cool characters that don't need any dialogue. I really enjoyed it, but it didn't really break any barriers for me, which I think might be the reason why nobody was talking about it. The first season is pretty much a villain of the week type of show. Each episode shows a different thing Spear and Fang have to fight. Some of the enemies and wildlife they encounter were cool, but some were pretty lame. I didn't really know how the second season could be any better if they followed this formula, but this first season ends with the story actually moving into a plot. Season 2 follows this plot, and it is really, really good. I was completely blown away by how much we got in this one season. This one's gonna be a good one. I don't even know where I want to start with this one. Here, how about we spin a wheel? Well, okay. The animation is gorgeous. It's definitely an improvement over Season 1, which didn't have bad animation, but it definitely had that first season level of quality. Season 2 just has higher res images, smoother animation, and overall just looks way better. Scott Wills and Genndy Tartakovsky's iconic art style fits the show really well. The action is as brutal as ever, but the one specific thing I've enjoyed in this season is the environment. Season 1 had a very bright, colorful, and lush world with its beautifully drawn jungle environment. Here though, we get to see other parts of the world and they look just as good. And this is a good segue into the world building. The world building in Season 1 was probably my favorite thing about the show. I just loved how the environment and wildlife all had a sense of culture. There were so many different groups of animals that all behaved differently and didn't act just as wildlife. They acted as their own people. But now that Spear and Fang have left their original land, we get to see just how vast the world really is with different types of human civilizations. There's Vikings, giants, peaceful tribes and villages, just so many types of people we encounter, which makes the world feel big and rich. There's so much lore you could fit into this world, and I think that oh, fucking hell. And I think that Genndy said he wanted to turn Primal into an anthology show, which we might just get. Spear and Fang are fantastic. We've seen man and animal companions a billion times by now in stories, and these two are no exception to that as they are really good. We haven't gotten much character development from these two in Season 1, with only a couple episodes really focusing on their relationship. In this season though, the character writing goes really hard. It's almost too hard. In only the second episode of the season, we see Spear and Fang get separated and find their own people to interact with. They're pretty much in their own separate paradise, but it's only when they reunite when shit really hits the fan. The village Spear was living in is destroyed, and Fang loses her mate, which puts her in a state of depression throughout the rest of the season. This whole episode was just a real tearjerker. Seeing Fang desperately trying to stop her best friend from killing her boyfriend, only for the carnage of their battle to spread, was just really hard to watch. And this was only the second episode. There was still much more suffering to encounter. Spear also gets a little side of regret this season as they are forced to attack a village in order to save Mira, and it turns out that the people they're mowing down are just normal people. Not evil soldiers, but just people. It's a really good trope that we've seen in mostly war movies, but it works to great effect here. But later on, Fang's depression clears out as she has babbies. Seeing Fang finally get a family was just so heartwarming. She really deserved this, and I'm glad nothing bad happened to them. Fuck, man, can we just get a break? Jesus Christ. This season really tests Spear and Fang's relationship and what they mean to each other. They could have never met each other again once they found their own people and lived a happy life, but unfortunately, that isn't what happens. And despite that event, they still care for each other. And all of this happens without a single word of dialogue between the two. Both characters show a wide range of emotion despite not being able to communicate, especially with Fang. I like how she clearly shows signs of intelligence but isn't too personified to the point that it breaks immersion. She's still an animal, but a clever one, and that's the case with all the animals in this show. Not only are they written well, but we also get a handful of new characters. Mira is okay. She has some of the female tropes you would expect from an action-adventure show. She's the damsel in distress half the time, but also a really good archer. Yeah, for some reason, whenever a woman needs to be good at fighting, their main weapon is a bow. I don't know how that cliche started, but I just found it weird. Mira isn't a bad character per se, she definitely adds another level of dynamic to the group. She's the level-headed, older sister-like figure, while Spear and Fang kinda just yell at each other all the time. She's decent, and I'm glad she isn't completely useless, but I felt her role in the last episode was a bit rushed, but I'll get more into that later. We also get two main antagonists, Vidar and Eldar, who are from the village Spear and Fang wiped off the fucking map. These two are great. They serve as a nice parallel between Spear and Fang, as all four characters have lost their entire families. The only difference is that these two want revenge on the very people that took them away. That fight between the two of them was so intense that you can't really root for either one. They all deserve some type of retribution, but you don't really want to see any of them die either. Eldar dies in their battle, and Vidar is left with no one else in his life. You'd think this is where his character would end. Vidar realizing that his quest for revenge left him with even less than what he had before. It would probably be best for him if he just left his fate where it is. Just accept the fact that his family is gone and that he has to let go of the hate. But no, instead he gets possessed by the devil himself and turns into a hell demon to continue his quest for revenge. Yeah, this season is really crazy. There's also this asshole queen who just rules with fear and leverage. She's a decent antagonist, but isn't much of a character. Just an obstacle that you can't wait to see our characters get rid of. But by far my favorite of the new cast is definitely Kamau. His character is just fantastic. When we first see him, I thought he was just a big brute that Spear has to fight, but no. It turns out he's actually an emotionally deep character who gets turned into a living weapon in order to save his daughter who is being held captive, only to then muster up the courage to start a rebellion and save his people. There's not much else to say about him except that he's the best new character we've gotten. Overall, most of the characters did well. Up until the last episode. Gendy did something similar with the last season of Samurai Jack as well. This episode should have either been a two-parter or double the length, because a lot happens in a really short amount of time. The episode starts off with Spear's origin story and how he took the mantle of his father. The theme of leaving behind a legacy and a family behind is very prominent in this episode, but it isn't fully developed, and this is mostly due to the relationship between Spear and Mira. After the fight with Vidar, Spear's final wish is to have a child with Mira in order to continue his bloodline so his memory and legacy isn't forgotten. First of all, kinda weird for Mira to do this while Spear has like 4-degree burns and is literally dying. I think this could have happened in a very different way. This also doesn't feel all that warranted because Spear and Mira's relationship wasn't that developed. Spear obviously has some interest with Mira, but I personally never got the hint that he had feelings for her, much less wanted to start a family with her. I feel like they could have planted seeds for that development because Spear really doesn't show this all that much. Spear's death also had the missed opportunity to not have an emotional farewell between Spear and Fang. That was fucked up. These two have gone through so much together, and to not have them say goodbye to each other in the end? How do you not write that? Imagine if How to Train Your Dragon ended with Toothless just dipping right after the fight, instead of that super hard-hitting moment where they recreate the scene from the first movie. We desperately needed that moment in this show, but instead, Fang just storms off for no reason.
Well, that's just lazy writing.
Vidar kinda just dies in the end. It's not really made clear what his fate is, but that last confrontation was just really rushed. I think that might be due to the fact they made Vidar too strong. They really just gave him superpowers, so it was kind of hard to imagine how long this fight really could have gone. Which is sad, because the idea on paper makes sense. I like the idea of Vidar actually getting his revenge, only for him to suffer regardless, because that's what revenge does to someone. It's not satisfactory at all. while Spear sacrifices himself to save the people he loves. The parallel of selfishness and selflessness between Vidar and Spear are there, but the ending doesn't do it justice at all. In fact, all of the ideas in this episode are great. They just aren't fleshed out enough. That last shot of Spear's daughter riding on Fang's daughter is, in my opinion, a perfect ending, but the journey to getting there was just missing so much for it to be satisfying. There hasn't been a green light for season 3 yet, so if this really is the ending to Primal, I just wish the steps taken could have been better. Primal is one of the best animated shows of the modern era. There are so many great ideas present in this show. It has the animation of Samurai Jack, the character dynamic of How to Train Your Dragon, the action of Castlevania. All of these ideas come together in a nice, brutal, and emotional package. But the last episode really doesn't do all of these ideas justice. The ending does leave a lot to be desired, but it doesn't soil the entire experience for me, unlike other shows. I could personally still watch all of Primal and still be happy with its outcome. I just wish Primal had that emotional punch to the gut ending, because that would have been really special to watch. But I still love the show, so I'm gonna give Primal a 9 out of 10.